So I believe we should be looking at least here in the visible light spectrum, and we have. There have been many alleged reported sightings of UFOs in this spectrum because that's what we see. But in my philosophy, when I consider Einstein's law, E equals mc squared, that mass cannot attain the speed of light because of the forces of resistance and inertia, I would expect a spacecraft to be pure energy, something that is not even physical as we know it, something that would be matter vibrating in a very high frequency state. And basically we should be looking for a craft that looks like an energy ball or an energy wave, and that energy wave should be a very, very energetic wave that should only be detectable in these upper spectrum. So what I started to do is to see where was NASA looking. NASA knows the same thing I'm telling you. Space scientists know the same thing that I'm telling you. Where are they looking? And what I found out was the space shuttle's video cameras were looking into these upper spectrum of light. In fact, the video camera on the space shuttle can see near ultraviolet photons as well as the visible light spectrum. And this is exactly where we would start to see something with a tremendous amount of energy. Say this was the UFO here, and it wasn't visible down here. That would tell me, if we were detecting something here, just to start with, that object would be a very, very high energy object. It would be a quantumized, phenomenal aircraft or spacecraft. And there would be nothing physical about it. It would be pure energy. In fact, we should be looking for a spacecraft that is made of pure energy. And what you're about to see in this investigation is black and white video footage taken from the space shuttle throughout the 1990s, and a camera that is capable of seeing into at least the near UV spectrum. So if some of these objects that we see in the tape were not visible to people's naked eyes down in here, it should come as no surprise. We're looking at high energy phenomenal objects.
To punish me for my contempt for authority, fate made me an authority myself. Albert Einstein.
In 1996-97, I began my investigation at NASA. I decided, who can I talk to at NASA to do an investigation into unexplainable phenomena? And at the top of my list were astrophysicists and astrochemists. I looked on NASA's website and found the email address for Dr. Joseph Knuth III, the NASA head of astrochemistry, and started a dialogue with him that turned out to be very successful. He first told me that NASA was making observations of unexplainable objects entering the Earth's atmosphere, detectable only in the ultraviolet range of light, something that was very peculiar to me. The idea that an object could only be visible in the ultraviolet suggested to me a quantumized, very, very energetic object, and that was not visible in lower spectra of light was very, very curious. The scientist who headed the investigation was Dr. Louis A. Frank. And Frank basically made observations on satellites that were roughly 25,000 kilometers away from the Earth, orbiting the Earth at a very, very large radius. And the satellite was called Polaris. The Polaris satellite was taking pictures in the far ultraviolet of the Earth. And he started to notice these impacting objects that he called small comets. They were about 40 feet wide, made mostly of water, and he detected they were made mostly of water. He didn't know for sure, but they were made mostly of water, and they were impacting the Earth at a rate of about 10 to 20 million impacts a year. Okay, so that was where I started. Those objects apparently were fluffy, house-sized comets of very low density and looked like energy balls. They actually didn't really look like water, and he wasn't sure they were made of water. So I decided to write Dr. Knuth a letter at NASA and ask him about these things to see if there was any similarities to these and these alleged UFOs that were showing up on the black and white video cameras of the space shuttle. I wrote him, "Dear Dr. Knuth, if these little meteors are hitting the Earth's upper atmosphere and dissolving, wouldn't the intense solar radiation break the H2O into oxygen and hydrogen separated, thus releasing tremendous amounts of oxygen into the upper atmosphere? When oxygen undergoes further solar radiation, O2, oxygen, transmutates into O3, ozone. Could these space meteors be actually healing our ozone layer? Is this proof that there is a God? Please answer. I wasn't actually kidding about the ozone question, because water basically is made of hydrogen and oxygen. And when water is exposed to the intense radiation from our sun, X-rays and gamma rays with temperatures that are off the chart as far as humans could possibly bear, and even ultraviolet light, we know, is much hotter than visible light. We know that because we get skin cancer when we allow ultraviolet light to penetrate the Earth's atmosphere, and it can actually cause very serious damage to our skin. The first question about these objects being water to me was, how could water transit from one point in space to Earth and actually survive this intense radiation? In theory, in space theory, space is minus 273 degrees centigrade. It's freezing in space. But as soon as any object, any gas, liquid, or object appears in space, it basically gets bombarded by tremendous radiation from the sun and tremendous radiation from the stars in the form of X-rays and gamma rays and ultraviolet light and so on. And the temperatures, the nuclear reactions that go on in the water would be so intense the water would burn up in a matter of seconds. These are allegedly 40-ton balls of water doing 35,000 miles an hour. But how did they get here? How did they come from the vast distances of space and get here and remain as they are?